to go? All right, welcome everybody to the January 2023 Watertown School Board meeting, and I'll call the meeting to order and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, under the consent agenda, item 2.1, roll call. Please note all board members are present. Item 2.2, are there any conflicts of interest this evening that a board member needs to report on agenda or non-agenda items? Okay, if not, item 2.3, we need a review approval of the agenda. If we could have a motion, please.
I move approval of the agenda.
Motion by Moulton.
Second.
Second by Iverson. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2.4, approve the minutes of the December 12th, 2022 meeting. We have a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from December.
Motion by Lohr.
Second.
Second by Stein. Questions? Hearing none, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2.5, we'll receive the financial reports for December 2022.
Thank you. I'll try to speak up so everybody can hear me. We received the final significant portion of the 2021 taxes payable in 2022 of just over $3 million in the taxing funds of general, capital outlay, and special education. State aid was received for both general and special education as well. Expenditures were moderate between the funds. The cash balance in the general fund of $7.7 million is below that of the previous 2 years and is anticipated decline as the district works through ESSER funds received under the American Rescue Plan, first received in 2020. The capital outlay fund anticipates a $600,000 transfer into the general fund to accommodate the fund. This is one half of the regular transfer in of $1.2 million for the fiscal year. Capital outlay is reported with a cash balance below that of the 2 previous years. This fund is difficult to compare as the district has worked through the construction in progress of the high school renovation and the $15 million received in capital outlay certificates in support of that renovation. When compared to the prior years, the certificate funds were received. This fund has increased by $2.5 million. K-12 nutrition services had expenditures exceed the revenue during the month with fluctuating inventory and students working through established lunch account payments. Concessions, preschool, driver's education, and custodial funds reported very moderate activity for the month. The moderate revenue in the LATC fund consisted of sources received in relation to tuition, state support, sales, interest, and other revenue. A contribution of $2.5 million was received from the foundation in support of the diesel expansion building project. The ending cash position reflects an anticipated decrease over the prior 2 years as LATC has worked to spend down their HERF dollars received under the American Rescue Plan, as well as construction in progress. LATC also reported activity in financial aid with increased activity in this fund anticipated for January as students have come back on campus. Bookstore, Educare, and food service also to increase activity as they head into the second semester. In the Employee Benefit Trust, a $270,000 loss was reported in December. The balance of $4.9 million is $2.4 million below that of 2 years ago. A $4.9 million fund balance has not been reported in this plan since January of 2017, in which the plan gradually increased to a high of $7.5 million. We are currently operating and working through a handful of high-cost claimants to the plan. It is important to maintain a healthy fund balance in this account to assist with times in which the district has a higher claims to premium ratio. An increase to premiums is anticipated for next fiscal year to accommodate not only high-cost claimants, but the increased health insurance costs as a whole. I would be happy to answer any questions should you have any.
Okay, with no questions, thank you, Mrs. Clausen. We'll move on to 2.6 and the student staff recognition.
All right, we've got a big bunch tonight. I'm going to start with carryovers from last month. For those faithful viewers, Last month was marred a little bit by the beginnings of an ice storm and then 4 days of no school. So we had our all-state chorus somewhat represented, and then asked them if they couldn't make it because of the weather that they could come back. So I do have some of my all-state chorus here. If you are here and I call your name, if you could come on up, and then we'll leave any all-state chorus recognition up here, and we've got some certificates for you. So, Angie Block, Abby Himrick, Caden Moore, Levi Carlson. Go ahead and just file them down that way. Maddie Martin Escamilla. Dylan Schroeder. David Lechner. Sadie Neiman. Jocelyn Thiessen. Maya Van Laken. Andrew Dalkey. Bo Roddershot, Jonas Geyer, Grace Remmers, Josie Altoff, Tessa Swiden, Maddie McDonald, Lucas Saracini, Mason Balakan, Noah Wallenmeyer, Dale Plunkett II, Harley Von Eye, Noelle Dunn, and these outstanding vocalists are directed by Mrs. Candace Von Eye. Come on up, Miss Von Eye. Get your picture taken here. Thanks for coming back. I appreciate it. And glad you got your concert in too. Now we have some this month's outstanding student accomplishments. First of all, we had some all-state football players. Juven Hudson and Chase Crocker. That's football all-state. Juven's I'll just stay right there. Now we have our academic all-state. Jesse Werner, Alex Carr, Dalton Bomberger, Jake Roble, Colby Locker, Caden Blaze, Tanner Wagey, Dylan Schroeder, Chase Crocker, Drew Denzer, and Isaac Redfield. These are your football academic all-state winners. Moms get pictures? Thanks, gentlemen. For cross country, we had an academic all-state. our student manager, Annie Rye. And we have some volleyball academic all-state, Kendall Paulson and Madison Rohde. We have one staff member here tonight that I would like to recognize. There are only about 40 of these given each year by the Milken Education Foundation, and there is one per state in about 40 states. I don't know if I know why the other 10 don't get one, but the Milken Education Foundation recognizes an educator in pretty much each state every year for their contributions and their enthusiasm, their energy, and we happen to have this year's award winner. And so if I could have Mrs. Abby Turback come on up to be recognized. We won't even make you give a speech this time.
thank you.
But congratulations, thank you for representing Watertown School District community with all your hard work and
Thank you.
efforts.
Thanks.
All right, thank you everybody for coming. Now's the time if you want to sneak out the door before we lock you in for the evening. Okay, first of all, we've got the discussion items for Lake Area Tech, and item 3.1, is there any public input this evening on agenda or non-agenda items for Lake Area? Okay, if not, we'll move into the action items, and first of all, item 4.1, the personnel, and 4.1.1, the resignations.
Good evening. We have two resignations before you tonight. We would recommend that you approve both of those resignations.
Can we have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve resignations.
Motion by Laura,
Second.
second by Stein. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 4.1.2, the contract recommendations and addendum.
We have two contract recommendations this month, and they're in key positions to our new surgical technology program as well as our counselor, and we recommend approval.
Okay, can we have a motion on those, please?
I will make a motion to approve contracts and addendums.
Motion by Laura,
Second.
second by Stein. Comments or questions there? Hearing none, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 4.1.3, the stipend requests.
We have several stipend requests from 9 instructors for 58 credits, and it's going to be a total of $6,264, and we would recommend approval of these stipends. All of the faculty applied through our credential committee for recommendation.
I move approval of the stipends as presented.
Motion by Stein
Second.
and a second by Laura to approve the stipend requests. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And 4.1.4, emeritus designation.
Yes, thank you. I am excited to read the proclamation I have before you today, but I am submitting the names of two retired presidents of Lake Area Technical College for the title of President Emeritus. And an emeritus, this award is typical in the higher ed community, whereby a president of a university or college, upon retirement, has provided dedicated and excellent service to the university or college, and then because of their actions and their work, is awarded this title so that they can go on and further represent the university or college in their endeavors post-retirement. It comes with no monetary value, but it is significant in its title. And so I just read, the proposed resolution would appoint Michael Cartney and Deb Shepard to the title of President Emeritus, Lake Area Technical College. And to board members, I recommend that the Watertown School Board members adopt the following resolution. Whereas President Cartney and President Shepard served successfully in their role as President of Lake Area Technical College, whereas under President Cartney and President Shepard's leadership, the college's reputation as a top-tier public institution grew both statewide and nationally, and has been recognized for high retention and graduation of students from historically underrepresented groups, as well as first-generation and low-income students, with rates well above state and national averages for both public and private institutions. Whereas President Cartney and President Shepard have been strong advocates for the value of a technical education tailored to 21st century needs and job placement at the college, including securing millions in state and private funding to provide equipment and buildings on campus. Whereas President Cartney and President Shepard oversaw the most significant capital investment, renovations, and building expansion in the college's history since the college opened, and resolved that Michael Cartney and Deb Shepard be designated President Emeritus of Lake Area Technical College in recognition of their past service, effective this date, January 9th, 2023.
Can we have a motion to approve the designation?
I move approval of the designation as presented.
Motion by Stein
Second.
and second by Lohr. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And we'll move to 4.2, the property items this evening, and 4.2.1 will consider equipment lease agreements.
Before you, there's a one no-cost equipment lease agreement. It's for a skid steer. This is in partnership with Kibble Equipment in support of our technology program. It's pretty incredible the amount of support that Kibble provides to the program, and we wouldn't be successful without it. So we would recommend approval of the no-cost equipment lease.
Do we have a motion, please?
I move that we accept this lease from Kibble.
Motion by Iverson.
Second.
Second by Moulton. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the lease agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then I have one more item to be noted for Lake Area. I'd like to welcome President Tiffany Sanderson to our first board meeting, and look forward to working with you here in the district.
You got off easy. I was going to have you come up and sit for the camera.
Thank you, Vice President Stiles. All right, next we'll move on to the discussion items for 14-4 and 5.1. Is there any public input this evening on agenda or non-agenda items for the K-12 side? Okay, hearing none. 5.2, we need the Northeast Tech High School report.
Yes. We did not have a January meeting to kick off, but the Northeast Tech board meeting is Wednesday, January 18th, 5:45. I know the Northeast Tech staff has been busy, trying to make up things from all the different schedules that had snow days and break and all that stuff. So probably been quite exciting over there to have people back this week.
Okay, thank you. Item 5.3 is our budget calendar.
Yes, the proposed 23-24 budget calendar is provided for your review. The dates coincide with the dates of the prior year's budget development and the dates outlined in state statute. Please take note that April 24th, 2023 will be the date in which the board will meet in special session and review to discuss the proposed budgets for both K-12 and LATC.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Glassen. Next, we have 5.4 and the elementary school presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thanks for those who are here and want to listen to this. So before you, I have a presentation about our elementary schools. And For the viewing audience, for the people in-house, for our school board, since we've been back from break, our district administration has been visiting our 5 elementary schools to just have a conversation about just the use, the state of our elementary schools. And so what you're about to see is really the presentation that we've been giving to our staff to just have a conversation about our elementary schools in Watertown. So how did we get to this point where we're having this presentation? So in 2021, we asked Co-op Architects, that's the group that does our work on our architects side for K-12 as well as over at Lake Area, to do kind of a facility study. So in 2015, we built a new middle school. Then the old middle school was renovated to become the intermediate school for 5-6, and we have been underway. It's supposed to be a 3-summer, 2-school year remodel of the high school. We're into that 3rd school year and looking for a date for an open house to be named later, so the public can come in and take a look at that. But we've done pretty much for our 5 through 12, we've done a pretty good look at and done some renovations within those 3 schools. And so turned our attention to some of the other facilities in the district. We've been working on some of our activity facilities, and then we also had Co-op look at our elementary schools. And so what used to be in Watertown was 5 K-6 elementary schools that were very full at the time of the middle school being built. And so to release some of that pressure, the decision was made to build the middle school to help kind of ease some of that. The intermediate school concept was introduced, and what was left was 5 K-4 elementary schools with different programming that takes place all within that elementary school being in there. So Co-op took a look at that, looked at kind of the shape that the schools were in, looked at the capacity and some of the programming that's within there, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And so from that fall of 21, it kind of percolated a little bit just behind the scenes, and when we got to our fall planning meeting in fall of 22, we talked about a couple of different things. One of them, and nobody likes to talk about this, we'd much rather talk about growth and things that are happening that are kind of problems associated with maybe too many students. And what we've seen over the last years, especially since the middle school was built at kind of the peak of our enrollment over the last 15 years. And when we looked at our projections, we've seen some decline. And so from the time the middle school has been built until this fall, we've seen a decline of about 200 students. And when we looked at some projections, we were looking at, and our projections are based off a birth rate number. It's calculating the number of births at Prairie Lakes Hospital in any given year, and then it's translated into roughly 40% have ended up in kindergarten 5 years later in the Watertown Public Schools. And as we've seen those numbers, when our numbers were up over 300, there was a corresponding number that matched that as they came in. And it's been pretty accurate as we've gone through. And so as we've been looking, those numbers have been declining going forward. And so we're looking at the possibility of further declining enrollment over the next 5 years, and trying to be somewhat proactive in how we handle some of that. We also talked to the board at that time about some changing demographics within our district and where they're landing within the elementary schools. And so that kind of springboards us into the next page. And so if Mr. Barrios would click on that, what we've got on the board are some elementary demographics. So the first couple lines are the building enrollment for this fall, the school capacity, and then a percentage that translates into for capacity. And so throughout our K-6, we have the intermediate on there because it does have some of our elementary programs. But in our district right now, our elementaries are at about 67% capacity, or 2/3 capacity. And then Also within our elementaries, we have different things that we consider like ESL, which is English as a second language. We started a colony school, Sunrise Colony, which is 15 miles north of Watertown. That opened last year. We have a Title I preschool. We have the SLC. We have junior kindergarten, and we have alt ed. Those all reside in our different elementary schools and are part of the consideration for the programming that takes place at the K-4 level. The other numbers at the bottom are our percentage of free and reduced at each school, and then our percentage of special ed enrollment. And so when you look at that free and reduced, we have a range of 20% free and reduced that's our low, with a high of 71% free and reduced at our highest school in terms of our free and reduced percentage. Our special ed enrollment ranges from 9.7% up to 22.37% for a percentage of students on an IEP. And what that translates into is that roughly 1 in 5 at a couple of different schools, 1 in 5 students are on an IEP. And also another note, the percentages are not on there, but the numbers of ESL in our district are growing. And to put that into perspective, I finished year 5. I'm in year 6, but between year 1 and year 5, we doubled the number of ESL students. Now those numbers aren't large, but they went from 40 to 80. And as we move into the calendar year 2023, we're approaching 100 total students. And so that number continues to grow, and that's as a percentage. With the shift to the intermediate school, we have tried to have our identified ESL students at the Lincoln Elementary, and part of that is for the consolidation of services and having a staff that is trained and able to instruct with techniques that are helpful for students who do not necessarily have English as their first language. But so we have that demographic. We have the range of free and reduced numbers, and then as well as that range of special ed enrollment at the different schools. And so as we begun to talk about what possibilities could lie ahead for our elementary schools, those are some of the factors that we have considered. After the fall planning meeting, as district administrators, we felt the charge kind of was to look at possibilities for a plan to address some of these demographics and just kind of looking at that co-op study. And so we've kind of kept, and when I say that I mean our district administrators and the work done by our elementary principals. These guiding principle, LES, in mind as we've had these discussions. First, the buildings reflect our community. And so when we say that, we don't necessarily just mean proprietary to a certain elementary school. So like the Roosevelt community, the Millette community, the McKinley community, the Lincoln community, the Jefferson community. We looked at, do the buildings reflect the Watertown community as a whole? We kept the guiding principle of socioeconomic equality and the opportunities for all students regardless of their economic status in life, and how does our programming and our facilities and the instruction relate to that. The consistency of program for things like special education and the ELL, English language learning, an increase in instructional time. So with our current setup, our specialty teachers do have to travel between buildings. And right now we have 700 minutes of instructional time that is devoted to simply going from one elementary to another. So 700 minutes where it's windshield time driving across Watertown versus instructing and working with students. That kind of bleeds into the efficiency of staffing. We've seen a trend over the last 10 years in particular in education where the number of candidates has continued to dwindle. So meaning there just aren't as many in the pool as there used to be when we go and we have openings. And that translates into certified, so teaching positions, as well as classified positions like custodial, food service, bus driving, those type of positions as well. And so when we talk about efficient staffing, we're talking about, do we have the right number of positions that we need in the district so that we can have quality people fill those. And then also the fiscal efficiency of having the right number of buildings open to deliver all the services that we need for the right amount of students we have. This blue statement at the bottom, a priority that you'll see on the upcoming slides, says provide and maintain district resources in a manner that supports the learning and development of all students, promotes equity, maximizes efficiencies, and ensures accountability. Go ahead. So there's a lot of different things, and I don't want this list to seem all-inclusive, but it's a pretty big list. But all the things that have been considered during these discussions with our administrators. The socioeconomic concerns, special education services, PLC is a professional learning community. It's the things we do with our educators to kind of work on the effective delivery of instruction, our grade level team meetings, staff travel times, I mentioned that, available space for staffing and programming needs, a balancing of class sizes, alt ed, alternative education, SLC, the ELL, early childhood, pre-K, junior K location, our nursing services, instructional coaching changes, SLP, which is speech and language, OT, which is occupational therapy, and then RTI, response to interventions, and then those interventions. Though there's probably a bigger list here, but just a wide range of things that have been discussed. So before you click on the next slide, what we're talking about, and part of that was brought up in that 2021 study was, co-op asked the question of, do we need all 5 elementary schools open? They surmised through the capacity numbers that the possibility existed that we could deliver the same content, same services, educate the same amount of students with 4 elementaries open instead of 5. And I want to share that because these next slides we'll dig into that a little bit. So just so everybody in the room understands, that's what we're talking about, is from that co-op study. They asked the question of, are 5 schools needed, or would 4 work? And so if you click on the next one, Mr. Barrios, we looked at a number of different concepts. Here are 4 that I have on the board. The first one in the upper left-hand corner, what we have right now would be considered neighborhood schools. So we have a map of our district where the 5 elementary schools each have a catchment area for students. And so they're divided up, chunked into 5 sections, and that is the supposed neighborhood that the students would go to. And so the simplest from that co-op recommendation would be to look at, do we have 4 neighborhood schools rather than 5? And what you would do in that instance is you would simply choose a school that was the most likely that could be closed and divide those students up, putting them at the 4 other remaining schools. And that's the neighborhood school concept. As I move across the top to the right, we call this the partner school concept. Mr. Nebelsick has been a speaker in our district. He's the former superintendent from the Huron School District. And Huron underwent a grade level school transition in the last 15 years, and where they remodeled and put in grade level schools. So in our case, what it would look like is moving the concept of the intermediate school down to where there's a 3-4, maybe a 1-2, and then a kindergarten early childhood center. In our case, a piece that we've considered administratively is, can we fit 2 whole grade levels in our district into our existing elementary schools? And our answer really has been no, that would not fit. And so the concept of the partner schools kind of came out of that, where there would be 2 pre-K through 2 buildings and 2 3-4 buildings that would be partner schools, where you would divide the district in half, and you would have 2 tracks of students that would start and finish 4th grade in that same cohort. So half the district on either side of that line. That's the partner school concept. As I move to the lower, the idea of could we get one building that could house 2 grades all together, a 3rd and 4th, and then have 3 remaining K2 buildings. That idea again falls into it would be difficult to have 2 grade levels in the same building, just out of the capacity. We would be back to that point we were at prior to the middle school, where we would have a school that was probably at 100% capacity. And then the final idea up here comes again on a model where, rather than all of it being at the elementary school, a shift to a 6-8 middle school, with the intermediate school becoming a 4-5, and then turning the other buildings into K3 neighborhood schools. That idea, at this point in time, our middle school does not have the capacity to house 3 grade levels. And so that would kind of be the fly in that ointment. So those are the main concepts explored. I'm here before you tonight to talk a little bit about the one that we kind of gravitated around, and that is this idea of partner schools. So the idea would be, and if you could forward ahead to our map. So here's our district, and somehow draw, and it probably makes the most sense to draw a diagonal line from the northeast down to the southwest, and have 2 essentially attendance areas for the district. Go ahead and go back. In that, that's where you would draw the first students that would come in to offer services in the pre-K area, and then join us for kindergarten. The rest of the students go to those 2 sites through 2nd grade, and then transition with the same cohort of students to a partner school that has them for 3rd and 4th grade. That concept, it addresses more of those other ideas, other than just the simple step of closing and going from 5 to 4 elementary schools. That was from an administrative standpoint. This concept offered with kind of the standard of use the existing buildings we have, and then what address the other needs in our district. This one seemed to be the one that we gravitated around administratively. So the final slide I have is what's next. So tonight is the January 9th board meeting that I am sharing this at. We have had 4 of our 5 schools, and I make my public apology to Lincoln Elementary tonight. I will be visiting them tomorrow, and our options for days to get these in prior to the board meeting were a little limited coming back from break. But we have hit 4 of 5 elementary schools already, offering staff the opportunity for feedback, sharing tonight at the board meeting, and then we will also have a 5 through 12 meeting that I'm announcing now, and information will be sent out for staff members who are in the 5 through 12 buildings, the intermediate, the middle, and the high school. That will be Thursday in this room after school, and I will send more details out to staff for that one. And then the probably the only direction I'm asking from the board is to, if there is interest in continuing the discussion, to have some community listening sessions. We would schedule those for later in January, and hope to get some public input on this particular concept. It would be somewhat like this, where I would present the concept, and then we would open it for dialogue, feedback, communication. Just for everyone, a couple of things we've tried to emphasize with the staff. One is the difference between ineffective and inefficient. And I say ineffective in that trying to make the point with staff that having this conversation does not mean that we are ineffective. So we are delivering our instruction, our students are learning, they are growing, they are advancing, all of that is taking place. But that difference between ineffective and inefficient, and the question we're asking is, are we being inefficient with how we're running elementary schools? The other thing I've tried to emphasize with staff is jobs, because when you think about this process, people are going to immediately wonder, what does that mean for my personal job? And the answer to that is, I don't think very little. We have, if there are positions that we're able to be more efficient with. We have on any given year people who retire, people who leave education altogether, people who take jobs in other districts, to where any possible scenarios could most likely be covered through attrition as we work through this. Here's why we're probably trying to get some of these listening sessions underway, and that is thinking about this in terms of how, if we are able to advance this, when could it likely take effect? Administratively, it would be open for consideration at the May 2023 school board meeting. Again, that's barring that we agree on things and it continues to follow the plan, so that the concept could take effect for the 24-25 school year. If there were potential transitions that could happen for the 23-24 school year, if there are some that are logical to make for next year, that we would be able to make them, and having some decisions by May would allow us time to address that over the summer and make some of those necessary changes. So tonight, not offering a recommendation other than trying to fulfill the idea that that we were asked to come up with a concept that we could put our arms around, at least administratively, present it to the board, and then offer an opportunity for the board to ask questions of either myself or someone else who might be in the room. And then the only ask would be is if there's enough will to have some of these community listening sessions, which would be taking place in the next couple weeks. Did I miss Mr. Barrios?
I would just maybe talk a little bit about capacities and what.
Oh, thank you for the reminder. Yeah. Some questions that have come up. One of them is about capacity and how would these schools look, if you go back to the previous one, if the one that has the two-part. What does this look like? So we showed the capacity numbers of about 2/3. By estimates would be in the 80% range of capacity if this plan was initiated. And I know there's a lot of worry of, there are people in our district who survived the previous rendition where we were using closets for instruction and things like that. Our goal and our plan was to not go back to that, and to make sure that we had enough room to accomplish this without going back to that level. And if you think, where we're at right now, we feel we have enough room for that, with some decline, which would mean that even if there's a corresponding growth, that we would be able to fill back in and look at if there is more growth than what we have now. So meaning it's not a 200 decline, it's maybe a 200 increase. Leaving, if a school is closed, that it would not be put out to pasture, it would still be available for district purposes and we would have to have some maintenance to it to make sure we're able to get it up and rolling if it would take the place of like what we've done with Garfield, since that was closed 20 years ago, where it's housed a number of different district programs over the years. Most recently, now it is actually half of the Educare Lake Area Daycare. The other half is our early childhood preschool right now. So seeing it like that whatever elementary school was, if it was deemed that one would be able to be closed, it would still be maintained for those type of purposes and available then if we would see an increase that would require more, either you put other programs there or we had to figure out how to restart it for an elementary school.
Great. Does anybody have any comments or questions for the discussion?
Do you remember, what's the capacity at the middle school?
750.
Oh, so
So
it's
that
the same
would,
as
in order,
intermediate? It's the
yep,
same
in
as
order to
intermediate.
go
Okay. That's what I
to
was just
3
wondering.
grades, then you'd have to have 3 grades of 250. For perspective, the last elementary that was closed in the district was Garfield. We had 4,000 students roughly then, and we saw a decrease over 2 years of 110 students. And that was when the district made the decision to close Garfield, and that was in the early 2000s. And so, with some of the decreases we've seen, it does match up a little bit with the last time this discussion was held. But I understand, at one point in the last 30 years, we had 7 elementary schools open in the district, including Grant and Garfield. Without a middle school, though. That was pre-middle school. The middle school was now where the intermediate school is.
I'll just make a comment. I think I can speak on behalf of the board when I say that we are not taking this decision lightly at all. I mean, on one hand, you could do nothing and just continue on as is, which has its pros and cons, but at the same time, you can go down this path of essentially creating a new system for elementary schools, and we hope that there are some real positive gains that we can achieve on it from both academically, socially, as well as fiscally too. There's a lot to balance in all of that. So I'm excited to see where this discussion continues to go. Appreciate the legwork that you've done to this point. I would definitely be in favor of having some community-led discussions to get additional insight, because I'm sure that there's things that we're not even thinking of that will come to light. But yeah, thank you for the legwork thus far and providing some solutions to consider.
I think the big thing that I've tried to emphasize, and I know I've said it to the board before, but I've said it to each of the staffs, is doing nothing does have consequences at some point if the downward trend continues. There is, and those consequences tend to be more fiscally related. So in rough numbers, if you look at 6,000 a student times 200 students, that's 1.2 million. And that comes out of our general fund, which is 80 to 85% of that is salary and benefits. And so when you start talking about that type of loss of revenue, at some point the conversation will have to be had, and so there are consequences from that. The other one would be is with that shift in demographics, simply doing nothing does not address some of those the trends that we're seeing and help equalize and balance some of that throughout the district. And so those two things alone will mean that there are ramifications without doing something. And the other piece I'll add, and I'll be done, Madam Chair, but is that I've tried to state that this is a concept. It doesn't necessarily have to be the concept as we move forward. And we were trying to fulfill what was asked of us and give you something to think about, something to work off of as we had this conversation.
Any other questions?
Thank you for the legwork to you and your staff,
Yeah, big thank you to our folks in the back there.
the principals, etc. Yes.
I think as Stuart said, we're very interested in proceeding with community meetings and getting that input. And if people can't make meetings, getting a hold of admin or any of us to talk about these issues and start to sort out where we can go with this. So, all right, thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we move on to the action items. And first of all, 6.1, approval of the bills. Could we have a motion, please?
I move approval of the bills.
Motion by Moulton,
Second.
second by Iverson to pay the bills. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to the personnel items on the agenda, and 6.2.1, the resignations.
Yep, before you, tonight is one resignation for your consideration and recommendation for approval.
All right, could we have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the resignation.
Second.
Motion by Lohr and second by Stein to approve the resignations. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And 6.2.2, the contract recommendations and addendums.
Yeah, tonight we have 4 contract recommendations and addendums for your consideration and recommend for approval.
Move approval of the contract recommendations and addendums.
Motion by Stein
Second.
and second by Lohr to approve the contract recommendations and addendums. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 6.2.3, the stipend requests.
Before you, there's 3 staff that are taking advantage of this for the spring semester. These have been run through our committee for graduate credit stipend requests, and so I'm bringing these for your consideration and approval.
Could we have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the stipends presented.
Second.
Motion by Lohr and second by Stein to approve the stipend requests. Any comments or questions?
Just to refresh my memory, what is there a maximum on the number of credits per individual?
Per individual, no. We have I think it's a yearly
Whatever.
maximum amount.
Yeah, whatever's in the budget.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, if no other questions, we have the motion and the second. All in favor of approval of the stipend requests, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
They do have to show proof that they completed them in
Well,
order
that's
to
good.
get the reimbursement.
All right, we'll move to the property issues on the action items. And 6.3.1, consider the surplus property bid.
Yes, we received 8 competitive sealed bids for the tech equipment that was declared surplus in December. It is recommended to approve the bid from E-Replacements for the surplus tech equipment in the amount of $91,960.
Okay, motion, please.
I move approval of E-replacements for surplus property as presented.
Motion by Moulton
Second.
and second by Iverson. Any comments or questions on that bid? Hearing none, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And 6.4, we have authorized the driver's education fees for 2023.
It is recommended to charge $350 per student in 2023 for the driver's education program. This is a $20 increase from last year and is necessary to keep up with the increased program expenditures. The supporting documentation outlining the calculation verifies that a fee charge increase is necessary to accommodate the future of the program. In the past, the Aero Education Foundation has covered 75% of tuition costs for students that qualify for free and reduced meals. And in 2022, 26 students paid reduced fees. Thank you to Aero Education for that. There is a high demand for instructors in this program, and the district currently has a waiting list to accommodate the student needs.
Okay, can we have a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the driver's ed fees.
Second.
Motion by Lohr and second by Stein to approve the driver's education fees for 2023 at $350 per student. Any comments or questions?
I'll put the plug in case there's anybody from Arrowhead listening, but we do meet this week on our board to consider that, and we have been very grateful for the support for our students in the past for the reduction in fees for our students who qualify.
Thank you. If no other questions, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 6.5, the student enrollment requests.
We do not have any open enrollment requests this month.
Okay, and no 132810s
No
either?
132810s either.
Okay, then we'll move on to item 7 in communications and 7.1, the administrative report.
Thanks. Now it's my turn. President Sanderson, would you come on up so we can get a better look at you here?
Derek gets to share this.
I want to welcome President Sanderson. She started here. Not many people get a day off on their first day, but she started on a holiday on January 2nd as we recognize the New Year's Day, and she's been full speed ever since. So welcome to the Watertown School District. And almost hot off the presses, but her replacement has just been named for the Secretary of Education. Dr. Joe Graves is probably for about another hour the superintendent of the Mitchell School District, and then he starts his job tomorrow with the legislative session. That opens tomorrow with the State of the State at 1 p.m. Anything else you'd like to add on the legislative session there, President Sanderson?
No, I'll be in Pier tomorrow. We've got the technical college reception with legislators tomorrow night, so that starts the next 2.5 months.
And we'll be rolling on through. Thank you. One other thing I know that's probably on a lot of people's minds is we've had 4.5 snow days. And right now with it being, I would call it early January yet, and a lot of winter left, I get that asked that question quite a bit. When we approve our calendar, we build in, there is listed at the end of each calendar a certain number of snow days. Listed on our calendar for 22-23 is making up snow days up through Friday, June 2nd. At this point, we have missed 4 days. That puts us at Wednesday, May 31st. The half day, we are kind of working on how to fulfill that. The big thing, we would bring something back to the board with a proposal on the calendar adoption, such as things that we're kind of considering are like that for that half day, going on an additional day where we have an early out. Can we still have students come that day to help fulfill that educational piece? Looking at some PD opportunities possibly that might fit within there. Looking at is e-learning the thing for us? Those sort of things. But other than what we have as an approved date, nothing to bring back to the board to consider yet other than what was been approved in the calendar. But I do want the general public to know that we are considering options in terms of that, and feel very fortunate that the southern part of the state got the 2 feet of snow versus the northern part of the state for last week anyway. Not to wish anybody ill will because our turn's probably coming, but we had the 4 days prior to Christmas break and 4.5 days, sorry, so to make up.
If that's all from the administrative report, we'll move to 7.2, and is there any board report to the superintendent this evening from board members? Okay, if not, our next item on the agenda is an executive session for the purpose of our superintendent evaluation. We need a motion to go into executive.
So moved.
Motion by Iverson,
Second.
second by Moulton. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and there will be no action after the executive session, so thank you, everybody, for attending this evening.
And a big thank you to Mr. Feininger there and Deb Frederickson for getting the setup. This is the initial time for this office for our regularly scheduled board meetings. We plan to have them here each month on the second Monday at 5:30 p.m.
It's really weird not to push a button each time we get to talk.
Yeah.
Good luck. Thanks.